All right, guys, we're back at Hollywood Boulevard where it all started, and we came here particularly because we're looking for the Hebrew Israelites. Josh told me that the Hebrew Israelites were hanging out over here, and the Hebrew Israelites are a cult. They preach a false gospel. They preach a works-based salvation, and they think that Gentiles can't receive salvation. They believe that only Jesus Christ came for the Israelites. One of the signs out there is saying, like, this Jesus that you see is the devil, because he's white. And I'm like, no one ever said he was white. It's like, it's just, we know Jesus is from the Middle East. I think we just need to go and confront them because they do preach a false gospel and they don't believe salvation is for all people. So we're gonna go try to have a conversation. I'm all
How many roads, too many signs, I can't read them. Wouldn't recognize the turn even if I seen it. Been driving all along, feel like I'm dreaming. Okay.
What up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Street Apologist Live. I'm your host, Vocab Malone. How y'all doing on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024? Around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the program where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. And we cover a lot of urban apologetic issues on this channel, youtube.com/Vocab Malone, which you guys should be subscribed to. And we like to also make sure that we cover the Hebrew Israelites because they are a key part of that equation. If you have not liked this video, please like this video and make sure that you're already subscribed with the bell. Hit, leave a comment. Let's get into this. What are we looking at here? Well, it's a street debate, a street confrontation between a Gen Z YouTube evangelist Christian man named Bryce Crawford. Came out 4 days ago. It's already got 340,000 views. So people are obviously interested in this. And it's titled Confronting a Racist Cult by Bryce Crawford. It runs about 20 minutes, it looks like. And I just played the beginning, the intro there. 24,000 likes, 12,000 comments. Bryce Crawford did a good job, and I want to congratulate him for going up and doing what a lot of people don't like to do, you know, talking to those guys. Well, we're going to watch the interaction and we're going to comment, especially getting into the Bible verses that they tend to misuse. Shout out to D-New and Nate2D2, the two best moderators in the business. And Nate, guess what? I got some birthday presents from you today. I should bring them on, but I'll have to play a commercial later on to do that and run it. And we also got my man Alejandro, a classic friend and patron. Are you guys ready to get into this? Because I am. So let's watch this video together. Here we go. It's on.
Created man in his own image. He didn't make man after the image of these other nations. We in Most High. The so-called.
Okay, so let's take a look real quick here at one thing. Right in the beginning, he said the image of the Most High, and then he went on to describe what he was describing as the image of the Most High. Well, I would like to take a look at the verse that he's talking about so we can take a look at it. We'll probably have to cover this verse until the day that we all die, because they're apparently going to be using it until then as well. So let's switch over to the iPad and bring up the verse that they are referring to, which is Revelation. It's from the book of Revelation. Okay, what are we looking at in Revelation? We're in chapter 1. You can see it right there on your screen. And he said, the man on the microphone, the Hebrew Israelite said, hey, the image of the Most High had kinky hair. So that's the image of God, and that's the image we're made in. Okay, so let's see what he's talking about. He's talking about verse 14. And his head, right? See that? And his hair were white like white wool, like snow, and his eyes were like a flame of fire. Now, what's interesting, though, is, of course, this is Jesus being described. In Revelation 1, if you look, Jesus is the one talking, and Jesus is the one being described here. In Revelation 1, it's a vision, and it is a vision of Jesus using Old Testament allusions and imagery that are usually reserved in the Old Testament scenario for God and yet applying them to Jesus. The whole thing is a proof of Jesus' deity and his majesty and his glory. And it shows he's God because he's being described in terms that no man could be described in. Only God in the Old Testament is described in the same terms. Well, that shows he's God, but they use it to try to show that he's a so-called black man, as they would put it. Meaning instead of his deity and his majesty and his glory, they make it about his ethnicity. As if Jesus was walking around Jerusalem with a head filled of white hair and flaming eyes. What do? They say, oh, that means he had kinky hair like a black man and he was drinking, and so his eyes were red. That's what they say. Okay. Well, you know what to say there in verse 14. It says his head and his hair were white. So notice, not just his hair is white, but his head's white. So if his head's white, is it saying he's a white man? No, it's saying that there's a shiningness, a glowingness, a brightness. And furthermore, when you see white like what? It says white like white wool. It literally is telling you multiple times it's about the color. Notice, white like white wool. It doesn't actually even say, even in the Greek, it doesn't just say white like wool. It literally says white like white wool. So if you get a Hebrew Israelite try to throw you off and be like, well, wool could be all kinds of colors. Well, maybe it could. I guess there's such a thing in certain contexts, but it says white like white wool, so you know what kind of wool this is, showing it's about the color. Additionally, right after it says white like snow. Now, what's interesting, he said the Most High. That means he's associating Jesus as the Most High accidentally, and his eyes were like flame of fire. Now, I'm not going to look at the rest of it because they don't bring up the rest of it, but a lot of you have dealt with Revelation 1 with me for years, but we sometimes forget to make sure we look at Daniel 7 as well. So let me briefly show you Daniel 7 as well, okay? Because Daniel 7 is the background to it. Daniel 7 is the background to the vision that John has. And if you look, it's the vision of the four beasts. I recently did some teachings on this. I encourage you guys to look at them. Perhaps you could look at them there and drop the link in the live chat on Daniel 7. But here's verse 9 of Daniel 7. I kept looking, so this is Daniel's night vision, until thrones were set up. Notice it's two thrones. Even in the Old Testament, it's thrones, plural. Why do you need two thrones unless two people are sitting on two thrones? Do you guys understand that? That means someone's sitting on a throne next to the one who in this context is called Ancient of Days. Now, who's the Ancient of Days here? Here, in a Trinitarian understanding, it would be the Father. But if you don't want to say that because you're like, well, I don't know if that's explicitly revealed, someone is the Ancient of Days who is already seated. His clothing is like white snow. And again, notice here in the Old Testament original referent, it's about the color yet again. His clothing was like white snow. What kind of snow? White snow, not yellow snow. White snow. Again, what does this symbolize? The radiance and purity. And the hair of his head like pure wool. This indicates wool that is pure white. So yet again, you're getting the point of the Ancient of Days who is seated, this kingly figure, has hair that is white. His throne was ablaze with fire. Are you noticing the bright imagery is the key? This is denoting glory. Its wheels were a burning fire. And notice in the Revelation passage, it says his eyes were like a flame of fire. It's not accidental that Jesus is described with the eyes. The same way his eyes are described is the same thing that's described surrounding the throne. A river of fire was flowing. The fire has to do with sort of cleaning things out, judgment. A river of fire was flowing and coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands were attending him. Myriads upon myriads were standing before him. The court sat and the books were open. So now there's a little discussion about the beasts in 11 and 12. Like I said, I already have a teaching on that. I encourage you to check that out. Maybe somebody could drop the link, please. Dinu or Walsh or Nate or Andrea, could you guys drop the link for the Daniel 7 4 beasts teaching so people can get that? Because I don't want to have people not understand that, but we're not doing that now. Verse 13, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming. So someone is coming up to the Ancient of Days, described as a son of man. He came up to the Ancient of Days and came near before him, and to him, that's the son of man person in this context, was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and men of every tongue, notice how universal it is in the Old Testament context. This is not just saying Israelites, it's just simply not, might serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which will not be taken away, and his kingdom is one which will not be destroyed. Now, it gets interpreted further, but here's the point. In this particular context, the Son of Man is one, and the Ancient of Days is another. In a Trinitarian context, we should understand what that means. That means that the Son of Man in this context will be the Son, and the Ancient of Days will be the Father. However, there's other contexts, I believe you could say, in the New Testament, in the book of Revelation, where the Ancient of Days is described as Jesus. Specifically, Revelation 1, he is shown to be the Ancient of Days. Not that he's the Father, it's just showing how the same language applied to God can be applied to the Son. Okay, now the point of all that is, wherever you go, Daniel 7 or Revelation 1, this passage is not about the ethnicity of Jesus, is it, ladies and gentlemen? What are we discussing? We are looking at a debate between Bryce Crawford, is the gentleman's name, and the Shield of Wisdom Hebrew Israelite camp. A lot of people do not know who they are. I'll tell you more about them in a little bit, but I want to make sure I play more of this video first. I just was dealing with the scripture they brought up briefly.
So-called Hispanic Native American men and women were made in the image of the Most High. As for you other nations, y'all weren't made in the image of the Most High. Y'all were made in the image of Satan.
Whoa.
Right? That's what y'all were made in the image of.
That's really
the Bible.
intense.
Well, like, what type of music do you listen to? I love Jesus. What type of music do you listen to?
Oh yeah, well I listen to worship music.
Okay. Let me ask you, who's the fastest?
Hey. Okay, everything about this is funny. You guys probably didn't understand what he was trying to do there. Let me explain what he was trying to do, the Shield of Wisdom guy. He was trying to get Bryce to say he listens to rap or hip-hop. That was the question. If you wonder, why did this dude just ask this kid, I'm saying in his eyes, you know, because he calls him I Love Jesus, because he has an I Love Jesus hoodie on. Why did he ask him what kind of music he listens to? I know why. Do you know why? He's thinking, oh, look, here's a Gen Z guy. He's going to say rap or hip-hop. That's what he's thinking. And then he's going to use that to talk about how his people are better. Because notice the train here is, hey, it's Black, Native American, Hispanic. By the way, the whole kinky hair argument doesn't even work, does it, for Native American or Hispanic? I now know someone in the live chat, well, some Jews and Sicilians have the curly hair too. You guys have seen the pictures of me when I had my, we can do that stuff, you know? So when you analyze this, it's really silly. Now, he says, let me ask you a question. I love Jesus. He's talking to Bryce. What kind of music do you listen to? And I love Bryce's answer. I listen to worship music. Hey, amen, brother. He's not falling for that. He listens to worship music. That's beautiful, isn't it? He's like, well, let me ask you a different question. Now, the follow-up question is even more ridiculous. He's going to ask him who's fastest. Who are the fastest people? Shout out to Larry Love. How you doing? That's what he's going to that's what he's going to do. So this starts off so silly. And just try to think in your head. Imagine in the book of Acts, Peter out there, outside the gate, beautiful. Peter being like, hey, Maximus. What kind of music do you listen to, Maximus? Okay, Maximus. What people are the fastest on all earth, Maximus? Imagine Peter discussing that, right? These guys literally just waste their time out there, just causing a ruckus out there on Hollywood Boulevard, wasting their time with the stupidest questions because their eyes are not on the gospel, their eyes are not on souls, their eyes are not on the glory of the Lord. And so they end up saying stuff like this. And I just encourage you, think about it in the book of Acts context. So listen to this.
Right? That's what y'all were made in the image of.
That's really intense.
Well, like, what type of music do you listen to? I love Jesus. What type of music do you listen to?
Oh yeah, well I listen to worship music.
Okay. Okay, let me ask you, who's the fastest runners?
The fastest runners?
Yeah.
Usain Bolt.
And what nation? What nationality is he?
I think he's Jamaican.
Yeah, he's a so-called Israelite.
Okay, first of all, nobody can deny. Sorry. Sorry, this stuff makes me laugh. Nobody can deny that Jamaicans, they tend to be pretty fast. We got some Jamaicans in the live chat that know what I'm talking about. Okay, so he transitions to who's so fast. But before we do that, I don't want to pass over. There was something where Bryce goes, "Oh man, that's intense." Now what's he talking about? I'm going to go back to the running thing. Don't worry, just hold on. What was he referring to? And I want to show you a verse that deals with this, okay? And now this deals with a classic Christian doctrine, the imago Dei. The idea that all peoples are made in the image of God. This is classic Christian anthropology. Okay, all people are made in the image of God. That's why things like slavery is such a shame.
Made in the image of the Most High. The so-called Hispanic Native American men and women were made in the image of the Most High. As for you other nations, y'all weren't made in the image of the Most High.
Let's stop right there. So I want to show you something for that. And I've already shown you Revelation 1 and Daniel 7. You need to know those two passages. Because what you need to know is you need to be aware of what they're going to try to use and what the background is to those passages. But you should know that for knowing your Bibles anyway. So it's not like just for Hebrew Israelites or something. Okay, now let's take a look at Romans chapter 5. I'm going to go to Romans chapter 5. I want to show you something. This is going to destroy their whole thing about, people are made in the image of God, and then, everybody else, you other guys, you guys are made in the image of the devil. First of all, how can you be made in the image of the devil? The devil didn't create anybody. God never said, I'm going to make anyone in the image of the devil. These guys just say stuff. Why? Because they're in a cult, just like the video's title is accurate, and they believe stuff that was passed down to them from some guys in Harlem who did not know what they were talking about, and now they're out there on Hollywood Boulevard spouting the same error. Shout out to Lewis Truth Defenders. How you doing, bro? Now, look at Romans chapter 5. This is going to destroy that argument. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed where there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam until Moses, even over those who had not sinned, in the likeness of the trespass of Adam, who is a type of him who was to come. But if the gracious gift is not like the transgression, for by the transgression of the one, the many died, much more did the grace of God and the gift by the grace of the one man, Jesus Christ, abound to the many. Now it goes on this idea. Paul here is showing how Jesus Christ is the last Adam. Sometimes people say the second Adam, but he is the head of a new humanity. And it's a better situation. And that's why you're either in Adam or you're in Christ. And obviously those who are in Christ are in Adam in the sense that they're born humans. But we are not merely in Adam. Now, why did I bring this up in relationship to what they were just talking on? Think about that for a second. Watch how this is relevant, people. I'm showing you the answers to the verses these guys are dropping. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, so death spread to all men because all sin. Let's stop. Who's the one man Paul's discussing? Well, we already know from verse 14 it's Adam. And notice what it says here. It says that death spread to all men. All men. Death spread to all men, the text says. Okay, do only Hebrew Israelites die? No, everyone dies, showing that all sin, because death spread to all men because all sinned. Are you following? This is drawing out what's in the text, not putting something in there. Exegesis versus eisegesis. So unless you want to somehow argue in this context, because I understand you can make different contextual arguments about the Greek word panta, but unless you want to argue that panta here doesn't mean all men, I don't see how you could, though. Why not? Because, first of all, we know all people do die. And we also know that Adam is the one being discussed. So what does this show? What's the point of that? In Genesis 1, what does it say about Adam? This all ties into the stuff they've said to him. Look what it says, everybody. Then God said, Genesis 1:26, let us make man in our image. And the word there, by the way, man. Let's take a look here. Oh, it's not going to let me do it? I was going to try to bring it on the screen for you. Oh, that's weird. It's not letting me do what I want to do. Well, I don't know why it's not. So I'm not gonna do a side trail if it's not gonna let me show it on the screen. Then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. That's the idea of image of God right there. So that they, notice it's both man and woman, they, man and woman, both made in the image of God, will have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over the cattle and over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. God created man in his own image. That is what it says. You guys see that? That is what it says right there. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So this is clearly Adam and Eve, we know from Genesis 2 and 3. So if Adam and Eve are the ones made in the image of God, you can't exclude certain people from that. And there's one other place I'm going to tie into to prove this. It's in Acts chapter 17, where Paul is before the Athenians. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Are you ready? So these all together really destroy what this guy was saying on the mic, the shield of wisdom, Hebrew Israelite. Acts 17:26, Paul tells Greeks, he's talking to Greeks here, he made from one man every nation of mankind to inhabit all the face of the earth. So we just destroyed the little things they said to him about, oh, some people are made in the image of God, others are made in the image of the devil. It was just destroyed. Now, I understand you can't always go through all those passages out there on the street, but I hope you see how they have literally no leg to stand on at all. Now, I want to give, again, credit to Bryce Crawford for being willing to go out there on Hollywood Boulevard and talk to these guys. The camp is Shield of Wisdom. Who's Shield of Wisdom before we continue on with the video? Shield of Wisdom actually goes all the way back to the early 90s. Not a lot of people know that. Abu knows it, but not a lot of other people know it. Sometime in the early 90s, Arya, who's the guy who invented the 12 tribes chart and the Lashawan Qadash language and made the false year 2000 prediction prophecy that they all used to speak out on the streets. Arya sent some guys, apparently from his neck of the woods, all the way to California, to the Los Angeles area. And they set up a camp. What was the camp that they set up? Well, at the time, it was called the Israeli Church of Universal Practical Knowledge, because ICUPK was the name of the school back in the 90s before the splits. Now, before the splits happened, they were sent out there. What does that mean? What am I saying? Shield of Wisdom is literally part of the original school. Now, why are they called Shield of Wisdom? After the splits happened, everybody went different ways, and there was no central unifying thing anymore, and the thing that was left became known as the ICGJC. The ICGJC. And see, the ICGJC, a lot of people were down with the direction Jermaine Grant and REI was still there, was taking it. So they didn't want to change their name to ICGJC from ICUPK. So there was even more final splits at that time. Now, what's the point? The point is Shield of Wisdom was originally part of ICUPK, went out to LA in the early 90s, and at some point after the splits, we don't know exactly when, but between like 95 and 2003 or so, changed their name to Shield of Wisdom. They were no longer known as ICUPK, and even did a TV show. Now, someone from Shield of Wisdom could correct any of the history, but most outsiders don't know a lot about the Shield of Wisdom Hebrew Israelite group, because to my knowledge, they've only got 2 locations. They got Norfolk, Virginia, and they've got the one in LA that a lot of times goes on Hollywood Boulevard. Now, they may have more, and sometimes they do unity camps. in its current incarnation, Shield of Wisdom might as well be House of Israel because they're closely aligned with Zabak. I don't know if they're directly under Zabak. I don't think they are because they have a guy, at least they used to. I don't know if he's still around. His name's something like Priest Thiaman. They have him over there, and he's an older man himself. So I don't see him really going under Zabak, is my understanding. But they're very similar in the doctrine they teach. House of Israel is Zabak. Chief Ephraim, those guys that confronted the MAGA-wearing hat boys out there, remember, in January of 2019. I'm trying to tie this all together if you're paying attention. So Shield of Wisdom is not House of Israel, but they might as well be. Kind of like the guys that I confronted in London. They're not called House of Israel. They have a different name. But they might as well be because they're basically under Zabak or work with Zabak still. So Zabak has a lot of influence even outside of the House of Israel camp. Shield of Wisdom is one such place. So this is Shield of Wisdom. They wear the purple and white, and you can even see it on their headbands. So let's return to the video. Watch this.
Y'all made an image of Satan,
Whoa.
right? That's what y'all made an image of.
That's really
the Bible.
intense.
Like, what type of music do you listen to? I love Jesus. What type of music do you listen to?
Oh yeah, well I listen to worship music.
Okay. Let me ask you, who's the fastest runners?
The fastest runners?
Yeah.
Usain Bolt.
And what nationality is he?
I think he's Jamaican.
Yeah, he's a so-called Israelite.
Wait, hold on. I got a lot. Can I ask some questions?
Go ahead. What's your question?
I'm not going to go as long as I was with the other commentary. I'm going to let the video play a little bit after this. But how does he get that because Usain Bolt is Jamaican, therefore he's an Israelite? Because of Ariyah. Ariyah invented the 12 tribes chart. And the 12 tribes chart says that people from the West Indies, what are they? They're supposed to be from the tribe of Benjamin. So that's why he's saying that. And so he's making the point to show we are made in the image of God and you guys aren't. That's what his point is. Okay, understand. Keep on going.
Yeah, do I talking to this?
Is that turned on?
I'm Bryce, by the way.
Well, we don't shake hands. Maybe at the end of this. At the end of this, we'll see how this goes.
We don't shake hands?
Well, we'll see at the end of this. Maybe.
Why?
We're going to see what happens.
Okay.
Ask your question.
Imagine it's conditional. It's conditional. We'll see how it goes. Now at the end, he does something with that. This guy on the mic that said, "We'll see how it goes." So remember what he said. We're gonna see how it goes. We'll maybe shake hands afterwards. But I just want you guys to keep noticed. Hey, how you doing? I see you guys up in there. In the live chat. Appreciate everybody. We got people all the way in Australia. What's up, Warrior Woman? So let's see what questions Bryce is going to ask.
All right.
We'll see. Maybe we can get a handshake. Let's see.
So what exactly do you believe in?
What we believe in, right? So if you look at this sign right here, we believe that the people on this sign are the 12 tribes of Israel, and they are the Most High's chosen people. The people that went by way of cargo slave ship are the Most High's chosen people.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. What I heard you just say a second ago is that any other race other than Hispanic people and African American people were not made in the image of God. We're made in the image of Satan.
Yes. If any man have an ear, so it says if any man have an ear, you got 2 ears on your head, right, Bryce?
I do.
Let him hear. So listen to this right here. He that leadeth into captivity. So didn't your people have us in the cotton fields, led us into captivity? Do you know that the so-called black man picked over $6 trillion worth of cotton, but yet we don't own not one t-shirt company? Do you know the reason why the so-called black man is at the bottom and we are so behind is because y'all got a 400-year head start off of free labor. Y'all got free labor from the so-called Mexicans. Y'all got free labor from the so-called Native Americans. Y'all got free labor from everybody, right? So read on. He that leadeth into captivity, because y'all led us into captivity, read on, shall go into captivity. No, they should make it into the kingdom of heaven. Shall go into captivity. No, we all can be friends. Shall go into captivity. Read on. He that killeth with the sword, because guess what? Your people killed us with the sword, right? Y'all, you know that a so-called black man is gunned down every 25 hours? Read on. Must be killed with the sword. This is talking about what goes around comes around. The law of karma, right? Not my words, but words of the Bible. Read on.
This dude just said karma. This dude just said the law of karma. By the way, in case you're wondering where they're at, this is Revelation chapter 13, verse 9 and 10. Revelation chapter 13, verse 9 and 10, which we're going to look at here in a second. So here in this discussion between Bryce Crawford and, you know, I guess you guys should know, you know, this video has gotten 345,000 views in 4 days. Bryce has a rather large channel, you know. People really enjoy his ministry out there doing street evangelism. He's got 274,000 subs. And so people are watching this. And so I'm glad. I'm glad that he went up there. I'm glad that he talked to them. I'm glad that he showed love. I'm glad that this video would exist. So thank you, Bryce, for doing that. And I don't know. I guess I'm glad that Shield of Wisdom at least talked to him. We're going to look at the verse there in a second there. But this dude just said the law of karma. Do you guys know what religion karma is from? Come on, man. It's not Christianity or Judaism, by the way. We have over 100 people watching. But guys, I don't see any super chats. And I don't see enough thumbs up. Help me out here. All right, let's watch this and see where they go with this.
Read on. Here is the patience and the faith of the saint. That's what the saints are patiently waiting for y'all to go into captivity, because y'all had us in captivity. It's only fair, Bryce.
Okay, so let's say you stand before the heaven's gates.
Okay, so now he's going to ask him a strictly evangelistic question, which is good. But let's look at the verses he just read, okay? From Revelation chapter 13. What is in Revelation 13? So let's get the context here. This is all stuff that it's good for Christians to know, but it's especially good to know if you're going to deal with Hebrew Israelites. Let me put what's on the screen. Let me put where I'm at, because the Logos app I have doesn't really say. So now it's on the bottom where I am actually at. That way you can come in and you can see exactly where we're at. If you're just joining us, we are doing a debate review between a Gen Z Christian YouTuber, a guy who does street evangelism. His name is Bryce Crawford, and this appeared on his channel only 4 days ago, and it's already gotten lots of views. By the way, a lot of Hebrew Israelites, as you could imagine, have done reactions to this. So, you know, I imagine there's going to be more. If I had to guess, I imagine there's going to even be more. This is making the rounds. So I thought it was important for me to cover it, because he didn't have time to deal with all these verses. So let's deal with these verses. So here's Revelation 13. First of all, you have a beast rising out of the sea. Okay, you guys see that? Okay, and I covered this in the Daniel 7 sermon. So I see that, I believe Don posted that. I don't know, you guys can't pin links. I'm going to actually pin the link real quick. Just give me a second here. I'm going to go ahead and pin that link if I could. If not, could you repost it? Because this will really help people see what's going on. Let me find this here and see if I can get this. Okay. Where did you pin that? Just a second. Oh, yeah, I didn't jump on there in time. Could you repost the Daniel 7 sermon for them? Because I want them to be able to understand it. Yeah, if you could, please. And I'll pin it this time, because I want everyone to be able to get more on this if they want more on this. Okay, so here we are in Revelation chapter 13. Don't have time to go over this, but the link is going to explain more about this if you want to know. Okay? Here's the key. Here's one of the keys to understanding this passage. Verse 4. They worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" Okay, are you guys catching that? So notice the beast is given power here. So in the context of this particular passage, who is in charge in a sense? Do you guys understand the question? Who is in charge? Now, obviously, God is allowing the beast to rise out of the sea and do this. But the beast is in charge of the earth. The beast is given reign. But there's the message I was talking about. Dean, who just dropped it, thank you. is the Antichrist in Daniel 7. I just pinned it so you can find out more about this because Daniel 7 relates to Revelation 13. And also, I want to give a shout out to the first Super Chat, Ham Sunshine. Thank you, sir. You're the first. You're the only. Okay, back to Revelation 13:4. They worship the dragon. So notice they're worshiping the dragon. This is basically demonic worship. This is where the devil has a hand on the government in an unprecedented way. If you think things are bad now, this is going to be worse, where there's a more even direct, naked, raw connection between Satan and the government in charge. And it appears that this government is going to have a system of worship tied in with it, and it's going to be all over the globe. That's the picture that is painted here as far as what I'm able to understand at this point in time. They worshiped the dragon. He had given his authority to the beast. They worshiped the beast, saying who was like the beast and who can fight against it. So everyone's like, man, you can't stop this. Notice the beast is fighting and no one can war against him. That's very important to understand. This is the context of the verse they just brought out. The beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and that relates to the little horn in the book of Daniel. And it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God. This is the same thing the little horn does in the book of Daniel. Blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed, notice that, it was allowed. So the beast is allowed to do this. To do what? To make war on the saints and to conquer them. Honestly, if you don't understand anything else I said, if you don't comprehend anything else that I've discussed here today, as far as Revelation 13, look at me. Okay, I know I'm in a different camera right now. Hey, you need to have Revelation 13:7 in your mind as the key verse to deal with the way they misuse Revelation 13:9 and 10. It's all about Revelation 13:7. Now notice I'm going through the context here, but this is for you, ladies and gentlemen. We're just reading the Bible in context. We're not just jumping to a verse, because the verse they jump to is in verse 9. See it down there? It's waiting on us. See down there on the screen? The verse is waiting on us. What's going to happen when we get there? We want to understand the context of what's going on. This isn't leaving the passage. We're right here in the passage, everybody. Understand, we're right there with it, aren't we? Yes, we are. So what are we going to find? What are we going to find? Here's what we're going to find. We're going to find verse 7 tells you how verse 9 and 10 come to be. It was allowed. The beast was allowed to make war. Make war on who? The saints, and to conquer them. And remember what I told you, verse 4, told you, remember that one too? Who is like the beast, who can fight against it? So in this context, if the beast is allowed to make war on the saints, it's going to conquer them, because no one in this context can fight against the beast. The beast will be unconquerable for 42 months. This is what God has willed to be. Now, follow along. And authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. Notice how it's imitating Christ's kingdom. This is important too, because Revelation 5:7 shows every nation, tribe, tongue. The satanic kingdom imitates that. It's not just all types of Israelites, as the one Westers want to think. Authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation, and all who dwell on earth worship it. This is the beast. Everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world. Notice, if you're one of the elect, you will not worship the beast. You'll be like Daniel. You'll be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and yes, I know those are the Babylonian names, not bowing down to the image of Nebuchadnezzar despite what everyone else does. That'll be you in this situation. All who dwell on the earth will worship it. Everyone else is going to be bowing down to the music, to the statue. Maybe not literally in that way, but I'm using that as a metaphor for the situation that's going to transpire in the future. All who dwell on the earth will worship it. Everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of the life of the Lamb who was slain. So the Lamb was slain. This is making the point that he's paid for their sin. Now, out of those verses comes verse 9. Don't let them just read verses 9 and 10. Make sure you go back just a few verses to verse 7, and that ties in with verse 4. Okay, watch this. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with a sword must he be slain. Well, who's the one making war on who in Revelation 13, audience? The beast is making war on the saints, and he's gonna conquer them. Ah, you following? Well, so what's gonna happen then? If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. You as a saint, when the beast makes war on you, some of you are going to go into captivity. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. Some of you aren't going to go into captivity, meaning imprisonment or jailed, being bound in some way. Some of you are going to be killed. Some of you will die during this time where the beast makes war on the saints. It's incredibly obvious in the context of Revelation 13, that's what it's saying. Now, let's say someone has a KJV rendering, which is somewhat different than the ESV rendering that I have in front of you. I believe the ESV is more accurate here. And the LSB has a strange rendering here. It renders one verse closer to the ESV of 10a and then 10b, and I forget which one's which. I think it's 10a is rendered more like the ESV and 10b is rendered more like the KJV. I don't understand. It seems like an inconsistency between 10a and 10b as far as the way it renders it in the English, even though I usually love the LSB. The ESV makes it most clear. But let's just say you wanted to go with the KJV rendering. I'm going to show you, even with that, we're going to use the New King James Version here in a second if it's going to go. I'm going to go to Revelation chapter 13 in the New King James Version, okay? This is closer to what they read. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of saints. Now, if you understand the text closer to the way the grammar is rendered in English there, as far as your interpretation, now, I'm not saying it has to go this way with it, and I hope it's clear what I'm saying, but even though it's a secondary and I think of inferior quality interpretation, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not true either. What else can it be saying? It's simply saying those who lead the saints into captivity at this time, they also will be led into captivity when the Lord comes back and wreaks his vengeance on the beast and his followers. And those who kill the saints with the sword, they will be killed as well. It's just saying you're going to get what you did when the Lord comes back. If you wanted to render that way, I think it's better to understand it to say this will be your lot as far as persecution, because the next verse makes better sense in my opinion, where it says, here's the patience and the faith of the saints, meaning we know that this is a lot that is given to us during this time of persecution. So we have patience and faith. They take it as the one Westers now. Oh, we have patience and we have faith to do what? Oh, because we're waiting to be able to wreck shop on Edomites, to see those white people and Ishmaelites, those Arabs go into slavery. That's what we're waiting on. They think that's what it is. But in the context of this, do you think that's what it's saying at all? Now, I hope you understand Revelation 13, 9, and 10 better within the context. Verse 7 and verse 4 will really help you. And they are just not doing it justice. And so we're always going to have to deal with that passage. Again, we are reviewing a debate between Bryce Crawford, a Gen Z street evangelist, passionate young guy, very zealous, and he confronted Shield of Wisdom in a video that has gone viral within our community, and I want to review it, and that's exactly what they're doing. I got some interesting comments here. Practical Civilian says, I'm black and I own a t-shirt company, LOL. Because I don't know if you said, Caught, he said, we don't own any t-shirt companies. I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about. I remember when I used to get Vocab Malone shirts to sell at shows back in the day. The guy I worked with, the company over there in Tempe off Broadway, it was a black-owned business. And then guess what? Guess who I get my shirts from now? White Label Consulting, a black-owned business. Both main places that I've got my shirts on since I've lived in the Valley of the Sun have been black-owned businesses. So I don't know what he's talking about. We don't own any t-shirt companies. Yeah, I guess Ralph Lauren and Polo or something, but there's others besides that. Anyways, let's continue on with this video. It's got some good stuff.
Saints are patiently waiting for y'all to go into captivity because y'all had us in captivity. It's only fair, Bryce.
Okay, so let's say you stand before the heaven's gates and God looks at you in the face and he says, why should I let you in? Why do you get into heaven?
It's by your work. Go to Revelation chapter 14 and verse 12. This is what's going to, because see, guess what? We are not going to make it to the kingdom of heaven.
Now, notice the mixture of messages. Because first he's talking about only certain nations get into the kingdom of heaven. And then after that, when he says, why, if God says, why should you be let in? He says, it's because of your work. Listen very closely to this.
Because y'all had us in captivity. It's only fair, right?
Listen very closely.
Okay, so let's say you stand before the heaven's gates, and God looks at you in the face and he says, why should I let you in? Why do you get into heaven?
It's by your work. Go to Revelation chapter 14 and verse 12. This is what's going to, because see, guess what? We are not going to make it to the kingdom of heaven. You actually have to do something. Let's see what you got to do to make it into the kingdom of heaven. Read that.
Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints.
Listen up, Brian.
Here are they that keep the commandments of the Most High.
How are we going to get into the kingdom of heaven?
Keep the commandments of the Most High.
What else?
And the faith
And the faith
of a Mashiach Hawashai.
So this is how we are going to get into the kingdom of heaven, because we don't even know if we're going to make it. That's why we're out here doing the work of the Most High. That's the faith that we have, that we are going to make it, keeping the commandments.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Can I share my perspective?
So he's doing it very kindly, you know, and I appreciate the way he went about this. But are you hearing this conversation? Christians, those of you who know that you're saved by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, because that's what Scripture teaches, and you're grateful for that, you understand why this group needs to be confronted and dealt with, because they not only teach blatant ethnic animus, but because they also teach, in this context, a works-based salvation. Although it's inconsistent with their message, because it's not really works-based salvation. What do I mean by that? Because a lot of them think that, you know, you just get in anyway. However, Shield of Wisdom, this group, may have a different perspective. Because there's some groups that don't teach all Israelites get in. Very confusing. They need to write down some of their confessions of faith so we can follow along with what these guys even believe when it comes to their soteriology. Shout out to In Context with Jim Green. Everyone subscribe to his channel. He does great work over there dealing with these folks as well.
So this is how we are going to get into the kingdom of heaven, because we don't even know if we're going to make it. That's why we're out here doing the work of the Most High. That's the faith that we have, that we are going to make it, keeping the commandments.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Can I share my perspective?
Okay,
Well, actually, one more question.
Yeah.
One more question. What do you think of Jesus Christ?
Okay, now let's show you what he actually looks like. Let's read that.
No, wait, hold on. I don't want to know what he looks like. I want to know what you think about Jesus Christ.
All right.
That's one of my favorite things Bryce did the whole video. I mean, he was cool all the way through. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that was perfect, the way he caught where they were going and said, wait, that's not what I asked. And notice how, imagine being someone who says they're a disciple of Christ. Imagine that, right? That's who you say you are. These guys would say they are. Imagine someone says, hey, what do you think of the person you follow and you're modeling your life after? And the first thing they want to tell you is the way he looked. Do you understand why that's incongruous, perplexing? It doesn't make sense. It just shows you whatever faith these guys have, it's not a biblical faith. This religion is not a Christian religion. Now, some of the Hebrew Israelites say, of course it's not a Christian religion. Christianity is a white supremacist cult. No, I'm saying it's not to be found in the Bible. It's not in the pages of Scripture. So listen again to this, because I'm glad that he caught him on this. He said, hey, I want to know what you think of Jesus. And he wants to tell him about, you know, how Jesus looks.
Of a Mashiach Hawashai.
So this is how we are going to get into the kingdom of heaven, because we don't even know if we're going to make it. That's why we're out here doing the work of the Most High. That's the faith that we have, that we are going to make it, keeping the commandments.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Can I share my perspective?
Okay,
Well,
good.
actually, one more question.
Yeah.
One more question. What do you think of Jesus Christ?
Okay, now let's show you what he actually looks like. Let's read that.
No,
Go to Revelation.
wait, hold on. I don't want to know what he looks like. I want to know what you think about Jesus Christ.
I think that he's the Messiah. I think go to actually St. Luke chapter 1 and verse 67. This is what I think about him.
And his father Zacharias was filled with the Holy Spirit and prophesied, saying, blessed be the most high power of Israel.
Of everybody.
Of Israel.
The 12 tribes of Israel, right? Read on.
For he had visited and redeemed his people.
No, the whole world.
He had visited and redeemed his people.
His is a possessive pronoun. So what I think is that Hamashiach Yahushua is going to visit and redeem his people, right? Read on.
And have raised up a horn of salvation for us,
For everybody.
for us, in the house of his servant David.
You see that? So that's how I feel. I feel that he's going to redeem us because we were the ones that were put into slavery.
You guys read out of the KJV, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the KJV to respect you guys.
Don't go to St. John 3:16, and please don't go to Galatians 3:28, because
No,
we can
I'm not.
break that down totally.
I'm actually going.
You know, if it's so easy for you to break down Mr. Shield of Wisdom, wouldn't you want him to go there so you can destroy him on that? We'll break it down totally. You know, he's supposed to be saying, we'll deal with the way you're using the verse. But, you know, it's almost telling that he says, don't go to John 3:16 or Galatians 3:28. We'll break that down totally. Wait, what? Paul, did I just go off? What happened? Stream suspended for policy violations? Oh no, what's going on? Whoa. All right, well, we'll have to finish this at another time. We are at 5:44, and I appreciate you guys for watching. I have no idea what happened. All right, God bless. Talk to you later. That was interesting.